Isn't this cute? This is a reusable gift bag for the holidays, although you can make it for other occasions, but I just love how it turned out. Super easy, fat quarter friendly. We're gonna be using some fat quarters to make this. This particular line of fabric is called Merry Little Christmas. I'll put all the information here. And I got all of this fabric and most of the stuff to make this from Missouri Star Quilt Company. I'm partnered with them, so they sent me all of this stuff. They also sent me these wonderful templates that they're just great. Here, I'll hold them up so you can see some of them. Like, it's a set of 18, so 9 big templates, 9 small templates, and I used the Christmas tree one for this. I also made some out of some other fabric, some different sizes, which I'll talk about later in the video, and how to do that. So if you're new to my channel, my name is Chris O'Neill from Sew the Distance. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to share this wonderful, fun project, sustainable, a great way to get ready for the holidays and to have some gift bags ready. And I think people would really love getting these. I know I would. On the screen now, you will see a supply list, and this is everything that you will need to make this project. And you also need general quilting supplies, like your sewing machine, thread, all of that too, so keep that in mind. Make sure you pause, take a screenshot, take a picture, or jot these down. I'll also have all this information on my blog, so you can go there to get all of it too, or in the description below. The link to my blog will be in the first comment as well. Now, the thing about these bags that are great is they're versatile, so you can make them a little bigger or a little smaller, however you want to do it, which will make a lot more sense as we get into the tutorial. So I just went ahead and picked 4 of the fat quarters I want to use from this fabric line. And then my background, I think, is a Bella Solid. This was in my stash. It's an ivory, and I thought it went really well with this because in this fabric, it looks like it's a white, but it's really not. It's like an off-white. So these are the fabrics I'm going to use. I'm going to cut them per my directions before and get them all ready to go and meet you back here so we can start making this adorable bag. I have all of my pieces cut, everything ready to go, and I like to label them. It just keeps me more organized. So I'm going to put these aside, the ones that we aren't going to be using right now, because we're going to start with the center unit. And I have a piece of fusible interfacing, and this is for appliquing down the piece. You want to make sure you have something stabilizing this fabric so it doesn't buckle. There are 3 different kinds that I ordered through Missouri Star Quilt Company. There's a light, a medium, and a heavy. And I played with a bunch of these, and I really like the medium weight for this. Now, this shouldn't be confused with this. This is to make an iron-on. This is to stabilize the fabric. This is a paper back on it, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this is the stuff that you want for on the back of your applique base. And it is fusible. So the fusible side is the bumpy side, that's the glue. And we're gonna just take our background, and you're gonna line this up and follow the manufacturer's instructions. So I'm going to take and line this up. Okay, it's slightly bigger. I'm going to just use a piece of parchment paper to put over this so it doesn't ruin my iron. And if you've seen some of my other videos where I do this, you know I love this stuff. This is Reynolds parchment paper because it has writing on one side, so I know which side goes towards my iron and goes up. And that's important because if I use the wrong side, I'll get glue on my iron. That defeats the purpose. All right, so I'm just going to do this. Fuse that on. I'm going to set that aside, set this aside. Next, we're going to prepare our applique piece. So I'm going to use some of this. This is Heat and Bond Light, and you'll see it has paper on the back. So one side is shiny and bumpy, the other side is a paper backing. And I'll just lay this out. You can see I've cut things out. I try to save as much space as I can. It doesn't matter, there's no grain on this, so you don't have to worry about the direction. You can just kind of put it on there however, which I'm just gonna place this on here like this. I do want to make sure that I'm not directly on an edge. You do want to have that sealed when you're cutting it out. And then I'm going to trace around it, just with a pencil. All right. And you can see this template has one in the middle that is smaller. We're not going to worry about that. We're just using the outside template. And then I have a pair of scissors. Now I know these are usually fabric scissors, but I got these at a yard sale and they aren't exactly sharp. I think they were used for on paper before, so I use them for paper too. And I'm just gonna cut out around this not on the lines. Now, some people do it on the lines. I do not. I like the finish better. So now I'm going to take my fabric that I'm going to be using for my applique, and I picked this really pretty green one. Move this out of the way. And I'm going to put this right side down, just like that. And then I'm going to take our template that we just traced. Now there is a grain line to the fabric, so you do want this to be straightish when you're putting it down. And again, follow the manufacturer's instructions. I'm going to turn it around so I can see it. And just adhere it. So you drew on the paper side, you're putting the glue side on the back side of the fabric, just like this. I'm gonna let this cool because if I don't let it cool, it's gonna gum up my scissors and it's not gonna cut nice. So just give it a few minutes to cool down off to the side. In the meantime, I'm gonna trim up these edges. All right, these are nice and trimmed and I'm ready to cut this out. You do wanna use scissors that are okay with paper because you are essentially cutting paper. All right, and I'm just gonna cut around this. Now notice how I'm moving the fabric and the scissors together. That's gonna give you nice curves, especially here. You can just kind of move the fabric and you're cutting on that line. So I'm gonna keep going. All right, so I'm gonna put this aside. I'll cut off any of the scraps that I can salvage on this and use them in a different project. Now, the next step is to put this on here. So you're gonna peel off the back. If you have trouble peeling off the back, you can just rip it a little and it will peel off easier. But I like to just get in there and peel apart the pieces. There we go. And you can see how this is shiny now. So you basically made an iron-on. And I've learned that not only is the backing nice to have, it's also good to have a thread that matches the color of the applique that you're using. So let's applique this down by machine. I'm at my machine. I have a Janome 6700P. For me, mode 1 and then the stitch 7 is what I want. So I'm gonna change that. And it's gonna give me this wonderful buttonhole, or I forget the other name for it. It has a different name too. Stitch, and I love it for this. It's perfect. I have green thread in. Actually, you can't see that. Hold on, let me move this up. There you go. You can see my green thread is in, and I have this foot. I'll zoom into that. All right, so I have this foot on. Here, I'll take it off so you can see. I'm not sure of the name of it. It has an arrow. Got thread in it, hang on a sec. It has an arrow to show me where the center is, and it's got an open toe to it. I really love this foot for this applique process. So I'll put this back on. And forgive me, I have a camera right in front of my face, which is always tricky when you're trying to show somebody how to sew. So I'll get that back under there. All right, so I'm gonna start sewing very slowly, and I'm gonna pick a spot that's not very noticeable to start. So I'm gonna pick right in here. And for me, I know that the stitch that goes over into the fabric is where the arrow should be. So I know it's about that much, and I'm gonna take my arrow on my foot and make sure it's in about 1/4 of an inch. Learn your machine, learn what the stitch does, because that'll help you. I'm also gonna clip some of that thread out of the way. All right, so I'm gonna start sewing. I'm gonna go super slow. I have a speed adjustment on my machine. I'm gonna slow it down so I don't go too crazy. All right, here we go. Okay, now this is real time, very slow. I'm doing pretty good now. I'm still learning this, so I'm not great at it, but I'm going to go to this corner and show you what I do. I'm speeding up the video here a little bit. Okay, when I get to this, I start to pivot, and I'm watching my needle and where it's at because I want to make sure I have a nice clean pivot to it. And when I stop, I want to make sure my needle's on the outside of the fabric. Now here I'm to kind of a tight point, so I'm going to just lift my presser foot a little and go around. And I'm learning with practice, I'm getting pretty good at this. All right, I'm going to take it to this point and show you what I do to the point, at the point. All right, so I'm at this point and I'm making sure that my needle's on the outside. And I think I can go one more stitch. Hang on, we'll get that. There we go. Now I'm going to turn it, leaving my needle in and pivot around and go back to doing it. Same thing with the outside. And I'm learning this as I go. So it's really trial and error. And for the outside point like that, I'm going to go to the edge. Just like that, and do the same thing. And I'm going to go all the way around, and then when I get back to the beginning here, over here, right here, I'm going to just knot it and overlap a little bit. Well, overlap it and then knot it actually. So I'm just going to do that and then clip my threads, and I will show you the finished product when I am done. Okay, so I just finished, and it's not perfect. It is absolutely not perfect. You can see right there, oh, not great. But then I have other spots that are pretty darn good, and I'm pretty proud of it. I'm proud of the progress I'm making. Every time I do this, I learn something else, but the big tip is to go slow and just have some fun with it, because this is a low stakes project and nobody's gonna know, really. I mean, unless they're a quilter, they're probably not gonna examine it like real close. And it does its job. I know people love to see the back. There's the back, you can see it. So I could have used beige thread, but look at how nice, and it stayed nice and stable with that interface on it. All right, now our next step is to put the borders around it. Let's do it. Okay, so we're gonna make the front of this bag, and I'm just gonna take my sample and open it up. And I put just some garbage bags in there to fluff it up for you. So I'm gonna pull them out. Okay, so you can see that this bag has a border around this part. So this is the part we just made. We appliqued it down, and we're gonna put the border around this. Now there are box corners, which I'll show you how to do, and then the backing and the lining. But right now we're gonna focus just on the front. So I'm gonna move that aside, and I'm gonna take my pieces, and we're going to be putting them on like this. The side units are gonna go on first. The 2.5 inch strip is going to go on the bottom. Now remember, we're going to have seam allowances, so this will fit. And the 4 inch one will go at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, one suggestion is if you're using directional fabric, let me grab one, like these adorable Santas, you want to make sure that the direction of your side units are right. So you're going to cut this strategically, making sure that these are going up and down and these are going across. But if you have a all over pattern or a tossed pattern, like it's sometimes called, this works perfectly. All I'm going to do is start with my side pieces, and I'm going to place it right sides together just like that, on that side and on this side, and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch down on both sides. Now this can be tricky because these are small. I'm going to give you a tip. If you really struggle with this, first of all, you can pin, but you also can use glue. And I know people get all upset and bent out of shape about this, and all I have to say is that my husband's a woodworker and uses glue all the time. So keep that in mind. I like this stuff. This is Precision Piecing Products, and it's just a little bit of fabric glue, and you can put it right on there before you sew it, and it makes it nice and flat and stays put. And all you need is a little bit, little drops. You don't have to do this. It's just another thing that we can use in our toolbox. Place that on there, and then it does heat set, but it does wash out too. And then you can go ahead and sew it. It won't gum up your needle or anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that on both sides, sew them using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, these are sewn. One I glued, one I didn't. It seems kind of silly to use glue on something this small possibly, but if you're new at sewing, this is just a really great product and it can help you in the long run. Next, we're gonna press these to set our seams, just like this. And then I'm gonna press towards the outside, so just like that. Look at how pretty. So I'll show you the back, just like that. So the next step is to add the top and bottom. Now you do have to pay attention because you want the bigger piece to be at the top and the smaller piece to be at the bottom. So the, I guess, wider 4-inch and the 2.5 inch, just like that. So pay attention to that. You can use the glue, you can not, you can use pins, whatever. You're just going to stitch these right sides together and they should line up just about exactly. They actually do. And stitch these using a 1/4 inch. I'll meet you back here. All right, so these are stitched on. They're a little off, but we can trim that up. That's not a big deal. And just press, press, and then press out. Look at how pretty. Oh my goodness, I love it. So that's the front. There's a little piece of thread, there we go. That is the front of our bag and I think it's so cute. So our next step is to put the fusible fleece on or batting. If you have regular batting, you can do that too. And you can just adhere it or pin it or whatever you want. So I have it cut here somewhere. And it should be about the right size. We might have to trim it a little. You know, fabric stretches sometimes, but this one seems to be pretty good. All right, so I put the bumpy side up, which is the glue, and I'm going to adhere it just like this. Okay, I'm going to set this aside to cool, and then I'm going to take the other piece that I have, and then I should have a backing, which I do, that is cut to the right size, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to adhere the backing just like this. Line it up and press. So now you have the front and the back. And at this point, if you want to, you can quilt this, but you don't have to because it is fusible fleece and it's not going to be on a bed where it's going to get a ton of wear. I think I have one that I quilted. Here it is. You can see it has all the quilting lines around the actual hat and then around the edges. The other thing you can do at this point is you can add the ribbon. Now for this one, I just left the ribbon loose, but for this one, I actually tacked it down so it stays with it. This is completely up to you. So you're gonna just measure down 2.5 inches, and then you're gonna find your middle mark, which this is 10.5, so our middle mark is going to be 5.25. So right here, about, you're gonna mark it and then take your ribbon, and I have this really pretty vintage ribbon. Isn't it beautiful? Just fold it in half to find the middle, the center, and then place it right on that dot, that line, and I'm gonna go down just a smidge more. And I'm gonna take it to my machine and I'm just going to zigzag right over that. And you can see that here, where I just zigzagged back and forth. Actually, I didn't even zigzag on that, I just did a straight stitch, but I'm gonna zigzag back and forth right here. Okay, you can see how I just zigzagged. And usually I would use a color thread that would match, but I wanted you to be able to see it really well. So we know that that's the top of our bag, and we know that this is the top of our bag. So next up, we are going to add the lining, and we're almost done. Okay, so we have the front, which is right here, and the back. And next we're going to take our lining pieces, which we should have 2, right here. And I love this plaid, isn't this great? So take one of your lining pieces and place it right sides together. So here's our front. We're gonna take one of these lining pieces with the right sides and just line it up at the top, just like that. And I'm gonna clip it. You can pin it too. Gotta find some clips. Here we go. Just like that. So you can see There's my front and the lining, right sides together. And I'm just gonna sew a 1/4 inch along that top edge. I'm gonna do the same for this one. Now you have these ribbon pieces, so you can either pin them or tie them. I even just tie it in a bow to get it out of the way so I don't accidentally sew it in, because that happens. That keeps it out of the way. So I'm just gonna do the exact same thing. Take my lining piece, lay it on top, line it up as best as possible. If it's a little off, that's okay. We can trim it down. That's not a big deal. And clip it. Now it's a little bumpy. It's not gonna lay flat because you have that ribbon in there. But just make sure it's lined up at the top. So these are ready to go to the machine to stitch across the top. One thing I want to mention is these clips, which are really great if you can see them, but one side's flat. That's the side you want going towards the bed of your machine, so when it runs through, it lays flat. Just a tip on that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and sew these using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I'll meet you back here to show you how to assemble the whole bag. Okay, these are sewn. So all I'm gonna do now is just set my seams very carefully, making sure that ribbon's not under there, especially if it has any type of polyester or anything. I don't want to melt it. So I'm just gonna be very careful about it. And you can see I'm a little off. That's not a big deal. It's really not gonna make any difference in the construction of this or the finish of it. So I'm just going to press those seams as they are closed to set them. And then I'm gonna flip this one side up and I'm gonna press it towards the lining. It doesn't matter which one that you press towards the lining. Just like that. The other one I'm going to press towards the front. And that's going to allow us to nest the seams when we put it all together. Just like that. For the next step, I'm going to switch to the overhead camera so you can see exactly how I do this. And like I said, you can see that this is a little off. I'm gonna trim that a little bit because you can see it's just a smidge. Okay, here are our two pieces ready to go, and we're going to put these together. And we're gonna match the back with the front and the lining with the lining. And all I'm gonna do is flip this over like this, right sides together. Because of the way we pressed it, these two should nest, which they're taking a little finagling, but it'll happen. And those are the two pieces that you really wanna make sure you match up because that's gonna be super noticeable. So I'm just gonna put a clip there where those two seams come together, one going one direction, one going the other. And I'm gonna do the same for the other side, like that. Now, you wanna make sure your ribbon is out of the way, just like you did probably with making masks if you were into mask making. You just wanna make sure that's out of the way just like you did for the elastic, okay? So put that there. You can clip it if you want, just to keep it controlled. That works too. And next we're gonna clip or pin all the way around this. And I'm gonna pin the lining because it's thinner, and I'm gonna clip the body of the bag. And you can pin like this or like this. I like going this way. Let's see if I'm going around this way. Yeah, okay. I think you get more surface area when you do it this way. There are many people who would disagree with me. And we're not boxing our corners just yet. We are leaving an opening down here, and I like to mark it just because I forget a couple inches, just like that. So that's where we're gonna start sewing and stop sewing on the other side. So I'm gonna start here, back stitch, go all the way around until I get back around here and back stitch. All right, I'm gonna keep going. And then when I get to this side, I clip. Just line it up and clip. Okay, now I'm gonna take this to the machine, like I said, and start here, stitching all the way around using a 1/4 inch seam allowance until I meet right here at this beginning point, ending point, this point. Let's do it. I'm at my Juki now, and I have my stitch length set to 2 for here, and then I'm gonna make it bigger when we get to the thicker part. I'm starting at that first dot, and I'm just gonna back stitch and start sewing. Once I get about a 1/4 inch from that point, I'm gonna leave my needle down and pivot. Just like that. And keep going. This takes practice to know where to line up if you don't have it marked on your machine, which on this one I don't. On my Janome I do, but this one you just kind of have to eyeball it. You can mark these lines. It's not critical, however, so don't stress out about that. Now I'm coming up to that seam and I definitely want that to be nice and even. Okay, because this is thicker, I'm going to adjust my stitch length a little bit, make it bigger, and keep going. And I'm going to do the same thing all the way around, pivoting at each corner. I'll meet you back here when I get to the other end. I'll show you how I end it. Okay, I'm back around, and you can see this isn't exactly even, not a big deal. Don't stress about the little stuff. And this is my point that I'm going to stop at. Right about there, and I'm going to back stitch. And get my thread. Okay, so this is sewn all the way around. Now before I do anything else, I turn it once before I cut anything, trim anything, all of that, just to make sure that everything is where it should be and that I didn't miss any seams or pieces or anything like that. So I just reach in here and turn it. This opening could have been a little bit bigger, but that's all right, it'll work. It's looking good. So I'm just gonna make sure everything is good. I don't have to fix anything. Looks good. I also did not sew in that ribbon. You can see that here. Ask me how I know. I've done that a few times. So that stayed intact. It didn't get in any of the seams. So I'm going to flip it back around and then I'm going to show you how we box the corners and finish this bag up. Let's do it. Before I do anything else, I am going to press this really well, and I'm also going to clip up some of these threads because it did get a little thready. So I'm just going to give it a press. The whole thing doesn't need to be just where you think it needs it. And I just have a light iron on that polyester. And just clip the threads and clean it up. You just don't want any of that shadowing through. That's the biggest concern. So now we're going to box the corners. I think I'm going to use a red pen so you can see. So you can box these as much as you'd like, but because our seam or our border down here on the front of our bag is kind of narrow, I like to do a nice narrow boxing. So what I do, and this is kind of a trick that I use, is I go by my seam line. I don't go by the edge of the fabric because the seam line's really what's gonna matter. You could be off a little bit, especially on your corners. So to me, this just makes a lot of sense. So I just line it up like this. So it's 3/4 of an inch in on both sides from the seam line. Or if you have a really good 1/4 inch, it's an inch in from the edge of the fabric. And I mark it. I'm gonna use red just so you can see. Anybody else have these pens? These are my favorite pens. I have loved them since I was a kid. And I never got them when I was a kid, really. So I love them more as an adult. I like to see them. And I had a teacher who had them when I was a kid, but we could never find them at the store. So now that I'm an adult, I can buy as many as I want. Go over here, do the exact same thing. And then I'm gonna do the other side here. Same thing. Now you can see, because it's a little bulkier, this makes a lot more sense now, doing it at 3/4 of an inch in. And I'm gonna do this side from that seam line. Here we go. Next, we're gonna just cut on the line. Now, don't use red because it could bleed through. So use a marking pencil or something like that. Actually, a pencil would work well because you wouldn't see that, but pen's probably not the best choice when it comes to this. It's just for video's sake. So then I'm gonna take a really sharp pair of scissors and go in and clip those corners. I'm gonna do this to all of them, but because I am recording and I tend to have some issues when it comes to stuff like this, and then I have to remake the whole project to show it. So I am going to just show you how to finish one corner, but you would do this on all. So you open it up like this, and you're going to place these in opposite directions, these seams. So you have your side seam and your bottom seam, and you're going to just line them up. So So you're pinching them and lining them up, and you're gonna sew a 1/4 inch right along that edge, just like that. And you'll do that to all 4. And I like to clip them really well. You lay it flat and you sew a 1/4 inch right there. Okay, you can see the box corner. I'm gonna trim my thread. And I went over it twice, just back and forth. And then I'm gonna keep going with the other 4 corners. All of the corners are boxed and we're ready to flip it. And this is the best part, right? I just love this. This is when it all comes together. So I'm gonna go to that hole that we left, the opening, reach in and turn it. Oh my goodness, look at it. All right, so we're gonna poke out the corners. We'll use this. I usually have other stuff that I use, but we'll use this. This is just a stick that I had. I think this was in my aunt's sewing stuff. When she passed, I got that. I don't know if it was a knitting needle or what, but it will work. I'm just gonna go in there and poke out those points. Oh, look at that. Do it all the way around. All right, now I'm gonna give this a good press and push out all those edges. And I'm just rolling them out as I press. Do the same on the lining. And that gets really wrinkly just because it doesn't have any batting in it like the other one. Next, we're gonna take this lining and stuff it inside our bag. Just like that. And just fiddle it in there, get it all lined up, and then pull this to the top. So the top part, make sure that's nice and even. You might need to press it, which I will. Give it a good shake. I'm gonna take that clip off so I don't hit myself in the face with it. And just press that in. And this is the finishing part. This is the stuff that really people look at and it looks like it's more professionally done. If you use matching thread, you take your time, you really press it in. That's the stuff people are really gonna notice, especially if you're selling these. Just go around and press it. Okay, now that this is all pressed and the top is nice and even, I'm gonna go in and top stitch. And I like to use a flange foot and I like to use my walking foot on this, and I'm back at my Janome. I use both machines interchangeably. So I'm gonna put this down and I'm gonna move my stitch or my needle position over, and I did it the wrong way. There we go. So I have it moved over just a little bit, and that flange is gonna run along the edge of my bag. And I use matching thread or coordinating thread now because the back is green, the front is red, the inside is a mix of everything. I am going to use red, but if you want to plan it out a little bit better than I did with this, you can use the same color. That way when you do your top stitching, it's a little more even. Okay, here we go. And I just start with a smaller stitch length to lock that in for a few stitches, and it would help if I threaded my needle, which I did not do. So let me do that. All right, it's all threaded. We're ready to go now. So I turn it down to like a stitch length of like 1 or 1.2 to start. And I take a few stitches and then I move it up to a stitch length of 3.2 or so, because it is a top stitch, and go around. And I keep going around and I make sure that's rolled in. It's kind of cute to see it peeking out a little bit, but it's really up to you. And we're back around already, so I'm just going to, when I get to this point where the stitches start, I'm just going to reduce my stitch length again to lock that in. Just like that, and you can back stitch if you want, or knot it, or whatever you want to do. And there it is. It is top stitched, it looks wonderful. And now we can tie it and enjoy this bag. Oh my goodness, look how cute it is. Oh! And I realized as I was fluffing up this ribbon, this really isn't ribbon, it's a bias tape. It's fraying, so don't make that mistake. I'll probably have to replace the ribbon on this because I don't think it'll last that long. Well, or bias tape. It happens. It happens. It still looks cute. Look at how cute that is. Oh, all right, so I do have a bigger one. Let me grab it. Here you go. And this is different fabrics. I actually use vintage fabric for it. Isn't it cute? Because some of these templates are bigger, and I have a size chart on my website for this video. I have a blog for it. And because they are bigger, you do have to make a bigger bag. And it's just a matter of adjusting everything and making it your own. So for the front, you can just make it a little wider, make sure the proportions are right, and then just make sure that your backing and your lining and your batting are all that same size as the front. So very easy to adjust. I even made a mini one, which is here somewhere. Look how cute it is. Isn't it adorable? Now I didn't box the corners. You don't have to box the corners. And for the little guys, I didn't. I think it's just so cute. And then I used a smaller template. You can also use cookie cutters for your templates. You can draw them out freehand. You don't even have to use a template. You can maybe use a quilt block, something like that. And here it would work really well for this. It's just so much fun. And I'm getting all ready for the holidays and having my reusable bags. Makes great gifts. You can even stuff them and make them little pillows or doorstops. Oh, so many ideas, so many ideas. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you take some time to sew. I'll see you real soon. Bye.